San Diego State back in the NCAA tournament for the fifth consecutive year, truly the sixth consecutive year, if you include 2020, of course, the pandemic, when the Aztecs went 30-2, 7 of 8 years for Brian Dutcher and his staff. Really a remarkable accomplishment when you consider the fact that San Diego State this year had to overcome being without Reese Waters all season long. And here recently, Magoon Guath, who is expected to be back coming up on Tuesday night for San Diego State and North Carolina in the first four. For the Aztecs, is their first ever trip to the first four, and they'll be taking on a North Carolina team that had a wild finish against Duke in the ACC semifinals. A lot of people thought they'd be on the outside looking in. They are the last team in the field, and they'll match up with the Aztecs on Tuesday night. The winner will get Ole Miss in Milwaukee on Friday. So John Schaefer with you on the wrap-up show. I have not done a ton of live wrap-up shows throughout the course of the season. It's been so busy with radio and calling Aztec football games, but good to catch up and looking forward to getting to Dayton. I will be out there, traveling out tomorrow and then on the air during John and Jim, hopefully at some point tomorrow. And then, of course, our coverage from Dayton. Ted Leitner will be on the call. You can hear it on San Diego Sports 760. You can watch it on True TV. And for all of the doubters, right? And we all went through it like it was a stressful 72 hours. It really was. Wasn't it, Aztec fans? I mean, how stressful was it after the Boise State loss? And I'm on the air post-game, and I was on the air Friday on John and Jim on San Diego Sports 760, and the reaction was what you would expect it to be, typical fandom, which is not a bad thing at all. But there was a lot of immediate reaction Thursday that San Diego State's done, right? We all saw it. Some of you may have felt it. And I had to kind of walk people back from the ledge, so to speak, and say, well, we don't know what's going to play out around the country. And to be completely truthful, I think San Diego State and North Carolina probably benefited from a very chalky, so to speak, conference championship week. There was only one true bid stealer, and it came out of the Mountain West, and that was Colorado State. And then you see what played out even over the last 24 hours with UC San Diego winning in the Big West over UC Irvine. That could have been a bid stealer. Then there was today where Memphis held off UAB. That was a relatively close game until about 5 or 6 minutes left. That could have been a bid stealer. VCU and George Mason was an incredible game that VCU survived in. They dodged a three-pointer at near the buzzer that would have tied the game and potentially sent it into overtime. If a couple of those games go the other way, I don't know if we're talking about San Diego State in the field or North Carolina in the field. In fact, I know North Carolina wouldn't have been in the field because I heard the committee chair say today that they had a contingency. If UAB beat Memphis today, North Carolina would have been the first team out. San Diego State still would have been in the field. But that's how close it got. But that's why what I said earlier last week after that Boise State loss was nobody really knows because we don't know how many bid stealers they're going to be. If there's a lot of bid stealers, it could be impactful for teams like San Diego State, Texas Xavier got in, North Carolina. If there aren't a lot of bid stealers, then, maybe the Aztecs will be in a position where they can get into the NCAA tournament. I felt very good as the weekend played out. I kept feeling better by the day because the results were relatively positive for the Aztecs, with like Indiana losing in the quarterfinal round of the Big Ten. There were just teams that didn't take advantage of opportunities. I think North Carolina would be included. They had a chance to beat a Cooper flagless Duke team, but couldn't. Had that controversial finish with the lane violation, and that does not cost them their season. They'll play on to get the Aztecs here coming up on Tuesday night. 6:10 Pacific is the start time for San Diego State and North Carolina. So I want to get into all of it over the next hour. So I want to start here. First things first, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do it. That's all I ask. Please subscribe to the channel. Year-round content for Aztec basketball and football fans. We've got conference realignment on here as well. So if you support my work, if you're here for a first time, if you've been here for a long time, please subscribe. That's all I ask. We have year-round content for you. Please smash the like button. You can find me on X, by the way, at John Schaefer, JONSCHAEFFER. In addition to that, if you want to support the work, if you want to make sure I see your comment, there'll be a lot of comments in here. I mean, there's going to be hopefully around 100 or so people live at some point here tonight. If you want to make sure I see your comment, if you want to get it on screen, if you want to support my work, you can click the $ below the chat box. They're called super chats. I'll get to every single super chat if you want to control the direction of the conversation. Of course, we can get into the game. I've just begun to do a little bit of a dive on North Carolina. I'll do much more of it on the plane ride tomorrow and then tomorrow night and then into Tuesday as well. I mean, it's a tough draw, make no mistake, but I think any NCAA tournament game is arguably a quote-unquote tough draw. And the Aztecs, it's again cliche. They'll have their hands full. Obviously, the UNC guards are elite. I heard Nick Boyd say tonight, if you check out the conversation at goaztecs.com, there's conversations with Brian Dutcher and Nick Boyd and who else? Miles Bird, Wayne McKinney III. I think it was Nick Boyd that said that UNC scrimmaged FAU down in Boca last year, and he said those guards were all they could handle, including RJ Davis. And RJ Davis is an incredible story. I mean, he's had this storied 5-year collegiate career. He's gone through the ups and downs. There's some, arc in there similar to like a San Diego State arc. Like he got to a 2022 national championship game, lost to Kansas. They had disappointment in 2023. I think they were preseason number 1. They returned everyone. Didn't make the NCAA tournament. Last year back in, this year on the bubble, right? So, listen, North Carolina has a really fascinating resume where, yeah, they didn't have a good quad 1 record, but they beat everyone that they were supposed to beat. They just didn't take advantage of some of those high-level opportunities, but they were perfect in quad 2 this year. I think they were 8-0 in quad 2. And you look at who they lost to. I mean, 3 of those losses are to Duke. They got 5-6, what they would call quad 1A losses, maybe more than that, maybe 6-7 quad 1A losses. I mean, the top of quad 1 losses. And they had opportunities in some of those games, including this past weekend against Duke. So everyone knows that this is going to be a fully capable team. They've won at a high level. They're littered with highly recruited players. Their guard play can be elite. And for San Diego State, I think you look at this like, what an amazing opportunity. What an amazing opportunity for this team that lost Reese Waters before the start of the season, their most veteran player, basically lost, 90% of their scoring from last year. I think their top 7 scores from a year ago didn't play this year. Think about that, because you didn't have Reese Waters. Your most experienced returnee was Miles Bird. And then you lose Magoon Guath for 6 games down the stretch, and you overcome all of that to get to this point. So I would think from a San Diego State perspective that the Aztecs are going to be loose and free, confident heading into this game. Now, do I love the fact that it's Tuesday night as opposed to Wednesday night? I don't. That to me doesn't make a ton of sense. I understand television dictates all of it. Somebody's going to have to play Tuesday and someone's going to have to play Wednesday. Both of the play-in games, quote unquote, on Tuesday and Wednesday feed into a Friday game. So people were confused about that. Like, why is San Diego State playing Tuesday if the winner of this game plays Friday in Milwaukee against Ole Miss? Doesn't that mean the Wednesday game is playing Thursday? No. The Wednesday game is also slotted for a Friday game. It also happens to be in Milwaukee. So the Xavier Texas winner plays Friday, and then also the San Diego State UNC winner plays Friday, and the winner of the Aztec and Tar Heel game is going to play Ole Miss, the 6th seed in the South, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So there's a lot to react to. Again, the Tuesday thing I don't think is beneficial. I think initially on television it popped up as a Wednesday. That's what I thought it said on the screen. And then at the end of the reveal, they're like, hey, Tuesday night, San Diego State, North Carolina, 9:10 Eastern, 6:10 Pacific. And I'm like, wait. And then you heard some of the comments, I think even from Brian Dutcher with the media initially was like, yeah, we're pleased to play Wednesday. We get the extra day. Well, they're actually going to play Tuesday. And again, with someone like Magoon Guath, who was a full participant, by the way, today practice. So he is fully cleared, full participant. You could use the extra day with Magoon, you would think, practicing today. You'd love to install more of a game plan for North Carolina. So I don't exactly know how they're going to do that over the next 24, 36 hours. It's going to be a significant challenge. Flying out Monday morning, traveling 3 time zones. There'll be some type of open practice, I think, at some point Monday afternoon or evening, and then turning around to play Tuesday night. I mean, that's a real challenge, but Brian Dutcher and his staff have always excelled in those short turnarounds, whether it's the NCAA tournament, 7 wins in the last 2 years, or Mountain West tournaments where they've been to a championship game 7 consecutive years before this year. All the success in some of those other MTEs, quote unquote, right? Even this Players Era Festival, winning 2 out of 3 games, Houston, Creighton. I mean, this is where they've really made their mark over the years, and we'll see if they can do that again coming up on Tuesday night against UNC. But again, as you make your way in, please subscribe. As you make your way in, thank you for the super chats. I'll get to all of them starting in just a moment. Again, click the $ sign below the chat box and appreciate your support of the channel. If you want to get your comment on screen, like slotting ain't easy, you can do it by clicking that $ sign below the chat box. So thank you for the first super of the night. He says BJ Davis was looking checked out on that selection video you posted on X. He's ready for that transfer. Well, first of all, how do we know? First of all, I haven't even seen that. Secondly, we're reacting to a 30-second video that I posted on social media from the Go Aztecs account of how the players reacted. Is that what you're talking about? I don't think anyone knows what the players are thinking in that moment. And I think if you're reading into how someone reacts to watching their name called on television on Selection Sunday, you're probably reading way too into everything, would be my guess. BJ Davis has had some huge moments for this team, massive, which includes that NIL tournament. Without BJ Davis, San Diego State isn't anywhere near the bubble. He had big-time moments in Las Vegas. He had big-time moments in the regular season. What was the game he just hit 4 threes in? Was it at Wyoming? Was it a home game against Nevada? He's played very well. Now, was it his best game on Thursday against Boise State? Maybe not. Well, the Aztecs didn't win the game. Collectively, it wasn't their best game. I saw in his reaction Thursday on floor that he was clearly frustrated with the result because they felt as if they had an opportunity that they didn't take advantage of. But reacting to a Selection Sunday video in terms of how the players react to seeing their name on the screen and then reading into it is probably reading a little too much into what a player's mindset is like or what's going to happen after the season. I mean, that to me is a little far-fetched and a little too far, truthfully. Now, with all that being said, nobody has any clue what some of these players are going to do once the season ends. I mean, look at how the portal has operated over the last 2 or 3 years. You have thousands of players. Thousands, couple of thousand players in Division I in the portal over the last couple of years. There's only 300 something teams. That's like 5-6 players a team. So like most players enter the portal. It's not like some unbelievable, it's not some remarkable moment when a player enters the portal. In fact, it's almost more surprising when players don't enter the portal. So when we see some of these statements that some of these players have made, like Reese Waters, who has a desire to return, Miles Bird, who says if he doesn't turn pro, he has a desire to return. It sounds as if, in talking with Nick Boyd, and I've had him on the radio here recently, and it's just some of the interactions with the media, it sounds as if there's a good chance he could return if he returns to college. So I think you have some pieces in place, clearly, for next year. And the rest of it, let it play out in the offseason. Why do we care what BJ Davis is going to do on Wednesday when the Aztecs are playing North Carolina on Tuesday? Like that's the issue I have with the transfer portal, that people become so consumed with it and fans are so overly infatuated with the next season. They're not concentrating on this season. Like, let's celebrate the fact that San Diego State is in a tournament for a 5th consecutive year, really a 6th, including 2020. I think for a 12th time in the last 15 years, it might be 13 and 15 if you include 2020. Someone looked that up for me. I mean, it's been a remarkable run of sustained success. 4 Sweet 16 since 2011. Indiana's got 3 since 1994. Let's just celebrate it for what it is and know that there are hurdles for all teams. North Carolina's got pro prospects. North Carolina can lose players in the portal. San Diego State has pro prospects. San Diego State can lose players in the portal. It's something every program is dealing with. And I think by and large, San Diego State has dealt with it really well. All right, let's get to this second super chat that has rolled in. Again, if you're here, please subscribe. You're on content for Aztec fans. We're getting you ready for San Diego State and UNC Tuesday night at 6:10 Pacific, True TV, and San Diego Sports 760. Thank you for the super chats as well, like this one from Kevin. You can click that $sign below the chat box. He says, we both played Cal with 20-plus point wins. Yeah, I want to say that they played Cal at Chapel Hill. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, because I feel like it was on television when I was in the studio at some point in the last 4 or 5 weeks. That was in my mind, maybe January or February at some point. I watched that game play out in Chapel Hill at the Dean Dome. So, okay, one common opponent. Obviously, the Aztecs played on a neutral in Northern California. I think UNC played it at home against Cal earlier this year. I don't know how much we can read into that necessarily. I do know this, and there are some metrics to support this, that San Diego State's obviously going to be one of the youngest teams in this tournament. They were one of the youngest teams in the country competing for an at-large spot all season long, which speaks to the incredible job that Dutch and the staff did all year. And I've been preaching that for weeks. If this team gets to the NCAA tournament, you can say it right now. You could argue this is Brian Dutcher's best coaching job if this team gets to the tournament. And guess what? They're in. So it's easy to now say that about Brian Dutcher. I mean, it's amazing. When you lose Waters, you lose Guath late, you have 6 of your 9 players in your rotation, sophomores in eligibility or younger, and you win at this rate, and you beat Houston and Creighton and win at Boise, right? You beat Nevada, you beat New Mexico. I don't think you've really asked for more. I really don't. I don't think you could ask for more than the situation that they're in right now. So, let's see. Oh, here was what I was going to say about the metrics. The metrics support this statement that San Diego State plays its best against its best and highest level of competition. And that has played out consistently. Houston, Creighton. I was at the Oregon game. It was like a 2-point game with 4 minutes left. I think they ended up losing by 10 or 11. That was a 50-50 game. I thought San Diego State played well They were super young when they played Gonzaga. They were like 2 games into their year at home. I thought they played well enough in that game. I think we saw the glimmers and the prospects and the possibilities of this team against Gonzaga. But then you think about, again, like New Mexico at home, Boise on the road, Nevada. I think against some of their best competition, specifically in the non-conference, that's when San Diego State played its best basketball. And that's what they're going to need to do come Tuesday night against UNC. And it will not be easy. And I think there's a lot of reasons as to why it won't. And thank you, Kevin. One of which I remember traveling with San Diego State last year when they went from Spokane, a Sunday night game against Yale. They came back to San Diego, flew across country to play a Thursday against UConn. And I felt like that travel was grueling. And that turnaround. Then there was some additional travel because you went Spokane, San Diego East. This is just kind of San Diego East. But I didn't think that put the Aztecs in a great opportunity to be successful last year when they played UConn in the Sweet 16 in Boston. So I think the travel and the turnaround is, problematic. But you could argue it's for both teams. It's not like North Carolina has more time. They just don't have as much travel time. Like San Diego State's going to have an additional, 4 hours of travel time on their way out, or let's say 3.5 hours of travel time. So they didn't do any favors for San Diego State by playing this game on a Tuesday as opposed to a Wednesday. And of course, the Aztecs have been without Magoon Guath. So what's Guath going to look like? Could you use the extra day with Magoon? Of course you could. And they're not going to have that. So, and again, you're taking on a team that when you look at their roster and you look at the games that they've played in and the opponents that they've played and some of the success they've had in recent years and some of these veteran guards like RJ Davis, Trimble, this isn't going to be easy, right? This is not going to be an easy task at all for San Diego State. But again, I don't think Houston was easy. I don't think Creighton was easy. And it'll be interesting to see what this game looks like and how it plays out come Tuesday night. But again, what can you ask for other than an opportunity is what I would say. And if they win the game, incredible. And they move on. We've seen teams go from the first 4 to the final 4. And it's March Madness. You just don't know what's going to play out. It can end, obviously, on Tuesday night against UNC or can continue on to Friday against Ole Miss. And from there can continue on as well. But it's hard to really know what to make of the matchup as of yet. Considering, again, UNC didn't take advantage of their high-level opportunities this year. Aztecs kind of did take advantage of their high-level opportunities this year. And we'll get into the matchup over the course of the next, 24 or 36 hours. But again, you wonder what the mindset of UNC is like. They probably thought they were on the outside looking in, and now they get the jubilation of being in. And how do they respond to that? It's going to be fascinating. It's really going to be fascinating how it plays out. And I'm looking forward to getting to Dayton and seeing this game to essentially kick off the NCAA tournament. Yeah, there's a 16 versus 16 earlier in the day. But this is the game that kicks off the NCAA tournament. San Diego State, North Carolina on a Tuesday night. There'll be a lot of eyeballs, especially with North Carolina, obviously, in this game. 6-time national champion, played in a national championship game here. Aztecs have actually played in a national championship game more recently than UNC. Isn't that incredible? SDSU in 2023 and UNC in 2022 when RJ Davis was on that team. Of course, Miles Byrd was on San Diego State's national championship team in 2023, although he did redshirt. I think he played 4 or 5 games that year, but he did redshirt for the Aztecs back in 2022-23. But in terms of how the selection process played itself out, I don't really, I guess I'm not overly concerned with it. The fact that North Carolina's in the field now that they're in. I think, sure, could you argue one team or another? Yeah, absolutely. But North Carolina's in the field, and now that they're in, they have metrics and they have the players to support it. And, you look at this point spread, for example, in Las Vegas. I think North Carolina right now is something like a 3 or 3.5 point favorite. So listen, North Carolina is no easy out, regardless of whether they quote unquote should have been in or should have been out of this field. And from a San Diego State perspective, I think they earned their way in. I really do. And I think it would have been a shame if they didn't have the opportunity, and maybe they benefited from, again, a lack of bid stealers around the country. But everything I said earlier about the fact that they're young, they lost arguably their best player, their most veteran player before the season started, in 2 weeks before the season started in Reese Waters. And then to lose your premier two-way player, one of the best defensive players in the country who was fully emerging on offense, had put together a 7 or 8 game stretch that was as good as any center or forward in the country, Magoon Guath. I mean, to lose him down that stretch was really impactful for the Aztecs. And to overcome all of that and put themselves in this position, I think is just again, a tremendous accomplishment. I really do believe that. And, again, that not to say that the only goal is to get in, because once you're in, you want to do damage once you're in. But I think we should take a moment to kind of recognize the fact that this team getting in, considering the uphill climb they had to go through, is really an amazing accomplishment to get to this position where they have a chance to play UNC on Tuesday night. And hopefully they play their best basketball, because I think San Diego State at its best can absolutely put themselves in a position to win this game. Because we all watch these games this year, right? I watch Houston and Creighton and so on and so forth. San Diego State's got some elite veteran players. And again, so does UNC. And I think it starts again with the Tar Heels with that guard play. And San Diego State's got some terrific guards, obviously. Nick Boyd, who's been in 3 straight NCAA tournaments. Miles Bird, who's been in 3 straight NCAA tournaments. How about the opportunity for Wayne McKinney III, who transfers across town, will play in his first NCAA tournament with the Aztecs. So how cool is that for the 4th-year player? And then think about the other players that transferred in, trying to get to the tournament. Kimo Ferrari, the San Diegan, had never been after 4 years of Brown. He comes in, plays a critical role, had some impactful minutes for the Aztecs in some games that they could not afford to lose. So did Wayne McKinney, by the way. Think about that too for a second as I go down these separate paths in my mind. If not for Wayne McKinney III's layup at the buzzer against Air Force in overtime, the Aztecs are not in the NCAA tournament. Simple as that. They're on the outside looking in. I can guarantee it. They wouldn't be in. If not for Wayne McKinney III's speech, impassioned speech at San Jose State when they trailed by 17, going into the locker room, and they came all the way back to win that close game, I don't think the Aztecs are in the NCAA tournament. If not for Jared Coleman-Jones and his performance against Houston when he hit, 3 or 4 threes in that game, a couple off the dribble, who knows if the Aztecs are in the tournament. Kimo Ferrari had some huge minutes in home games where the Aztecs trailed big against San Jose State and Wyoming. When Coleman-Jones was out and they needed a spark plug just in general, and they went to Kimo Ferrari, and that spurred a 40-4 run in one game. I think that was actually against Air Force when they fell behind at home, 22-8 or 22-9. So Ferrari comes home against the NCAA tournament. Jared Coleman-Jones had never been to the NCAA tournament after playing at Northwestern and playing at Middle Tennessee State. Nick Boyd, again, a couple of years, transfers in, gets to another NCAA tournament. So again, that's why you come here, right? That's what they're selling players on in the portal, and that's what they're selling young players on as well. There's a lot of programs that can offer, NIL. There's a lot of programs that can offer, education. There's not a ton of programs, especially outside the P4, that can offer the consistency that San Diego State has offered in terms of getting to the NCAA tournament. So some of these young players like Magoon Guath, yes, he redshirted last year when they made the Sweet 16, but he's in as a player. Pharaoh Compton, Taj DeGorville. It's just cool to see. I mean, it's cool to see, and it never gets old, man. Watching players celebrate on Selection Sunday, or just seeing the joy in their face or the sigh of relief, it just absolutely never gets old. I thought the Mountain West was rewarded, truthfully. I mean, look at the last 4 years. Mount West in 2022 gets 4 teams into the field, including the Aztecs, who were in an 8-9 game against Creighton and blew that lead, I think a 9-point lead with 3 minutes to play, right? So that was a year before they ended up going to the national championship. They had 4 teams in 2022. They had 4 teams in 2023. The Aztecs go to the Natty. They had 6 teams in last year. Now, only 4 combined wins last year, but 2 of them from San Diego State to get to the Sweet 16. And now they get 4 teams in this year. And I think that's pretty fair and reasonable. There's only 68 that are going to be in the field. There's not room for everyone. I thought Boise State had a very good year. But when you compare the resumes of San Diego State and Boise State, and I said this for the last 24, 48 hours, if anyone was following me on social media, X, in these Facebook message groups, I said, listen, you can't compare Boise State's resume to San Diego State's. Not to say Boise didn't have a great year, but the Aztecs beat Boise 2 out of 3 and have the most marquee win in the league out of the conference with Houston. They arguably have the second most marquee win. Yeah, Boise had St. Mary's and Clemson. They did that at home, essentially. Aztecs have Creighton and Houston on a neutral floor. And then San Diego State has the 2 wins against Boise. I just didn't see a scenario where Boise was getting in over San Diego State. And then a credit to the year that New Mexico had, regular season. Utah State, the work they did non-conference, they faded a little bit down the stretch, but they deserve to be in, and they're in. And then Colorado State, give them credit. I mean, Nick Clifford leading this remarkable surge. They've won 10 consecutive games. They're favored in a 12-5 game against Memphis in Seattle. I think they're a 2.5-point favorite in that game, and they probably should be based on the way that they're playing right now. So 4 teams in, I think, is fair. For those that thought, maybe Boise should be in over North Carolina. Again, it's hard when you are outside of a power league to ask for more than 3 at-large spots. Like the ACC's got 4 teams in with North Carolina, and the Mountain West has 4 teams in with San Diego State. I want to say last year, yeah, I know they did. Mountain West had more teams than the ACC last year. Mountain West had more teams than the Big East did last year. I think the Big East had 3 and the Mountain West had 6. So it's proved to be a very good basketball league this decade. I think when you look at realignment and what that's going to mean for San Diego State men's basketball, it's going to be very favorable when you put the Aztecs and Gonzaga, Colorado State, Boise State, who knows what St. Mary's prospects are like moving forward. Oregon State, has had some recent success. It's been a few years, but had that Elite 8 run. So, I mean, there's a chance where you're getting 4 or 5 teams in with regularity in the Pac-12. It might only be an 8, 9, 10 team league. And I think you have a chance to get to that, 4 or 5 teams in on the regular in the Pac-12 moving forward. There's one more year of the Mountain West, and I was critical of the expanded conference schedule this year. I think in the end, it wasn't really quote unquote detrimental to the league. But again, some of these differentiators, I don't think San Diego State's in without their non-conference strength of schedule, which was 7th in the country, that Houston, Creighton, Oregon, Gonzaga, schedule that they put together in the non-conference. Like, I think that played a big role in SDSU getting in. And I like to see teams have additional opportunities. Like, I like the fact that Boise State got Clemson and St. Mary's. Those types of games are beneficial and at least give you an opportunity to build the resume that's necessary to get into the NCAA tournament as an at-large team. And that's what the Aztecs did. And that's what they've consistently done. Last year, they beat Gonzaga up in Spokane. That's how they got the 5 seed. They were 5th in the league in the Mountain West. They finished in 5th place in the Mountain West. They got a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. The year before, 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. The year before, wearing white uniforms in the first round, an 8 seed in the NCAA tournament. You don't solely do that in the Mountain West. I mean, even if you go 17-3 in the league, look at New Mexico. I think they went 17-3 in the league. They're a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament. Now, they beat UCLA on a neutral floor. They have good out-of-conference wins, but the league doesn't typically get favors when it comes to seeding, maybe outside of San Diego State over the last couple of years. But the league's getting rewarded by sending teams to the NCAA tournament. And from there, it's hard to complain. I mean, if you're New Mexico, you have to take advantage of an opportunity. Colorado State, San Diego State, right? Utah State, take advantage of these opportunities. And that's something that the Aztecs have done with regularity over the last 2 years, winning 7 games, obviously, over the last 2 years in the NCAA tournament. So, all right. So with you, we have another 30 minutes or so. If there's something you want me to get to, you can put it in the chat. Appreciate the supers. If you want to click the $ below the chat box, I'll put your comment on screen. You can control the direction of the conversation. If you've got a specific comment or question or reaction or something you want me to react to, you can put it in the comments. But again, the Aztecs are in. They're taking on North Carolina Tuesday night, 9:10 Eastern, 6:10 Pacific. San Diego State, North Carolina. I was going to say this, super cool for Ted Leitner, Uncle Teddy. You can listen on San Diego Sports 760. Download the iHeartRadio app. You can listen to Ted. You can turn the TV down, turn Ted up. In his 30th and final season as the voice of the Aztecs men's basketball team, he's heading back to the NCAA tournament, which I think is a big deal because we didn't know it on Thursday. That could have been it for the Aztecs. I mean, sure, they could have played in the NIT or some other postseason events, but to get to the NCAA tournament, which is something that the Aztecs have made a living of doing under Steve Fisher and Brian Dutcher, and for Ted to have a chance to cap his career by calling hopefully additional tournament games, not just a game. I thought that was super, super cool. So happy for Ted. Looking forward to being out there in Dayton Arena with Ted. Excited to see this arena. Obviously, it's been a terrific draw for the first 4 over the years that this event expanded the tournament. I mean, Dayton's been an amazing host site for this event. So I think it's going to be a really good atmosphere, especially with North Carolina in the building. Hopefully some Aztec fans are making the trip. Maybe someone right now, if you're going, let me know in the chat if you're heading out to Dayton at some point tomorrow or Tuesday. So hopefully Aztec fans are able to make that trip. Obviously, it's not the easiest trip in the world, San Diego to Dayton on a day's notice, but hopefully there'll be a decent contingent of Aztec fans rooting on San Diego State. I would imagine North Carolina would have a bit of the crowd with it being closer and with their, just the national brand that they've established. But then again, the fans in Ohio and in Dayton, maybe they're pulling more for San Diego State than North Carolina, with North Carolina being the blue blood and San Diego State being more of that new blood. I think it's going to feel more like a bowl game. I think it's just going to have that like neutral court feel that we saw like in Las Vegas for the Mountain West tournament or in Vegas for the Players Era Festival, or sometimes we see play out in NCAA tournament games. And keep in mind, San Diego State's best basketball has also been played on neutral floors. and in road venues. I think the Aztecs are 9-6 road neutral this year. That's really good compared to the field. And you'll take that percentage. That's winning at a 60% clip on the road. So hopefully that trend continues beginning Tuesday night against UNC. Let's see here. I'll scroll through the chat and see if there's anything that spurs a conversation. Steven's off to Dayton for madness. That is super cool. Or maybe you're just saying San Diego State is off to Dayton for madness. But yeah, absolutely. Omar, I don't think it was a change. I think it was a mistake if CBS popped up Wednesday, or maybe we all assumed since it fed into Friday that they were playing on a Wednesday, because we're so used to, the Wednesday game feeds into Friday and the Tuesday game feeds into Thursday, but that isn't a guarantee. And I think there's been another example of this at some point over the last decade. This is all about like bracketing principles and television and the way they have flexibility now at the bracket. This actually kind of makes sense. Point being, if both winners are going to play Friday, someone has to play Tuesday, someone has to play Wednesday. So they elected UNC San Diego State to kick off the tournament essentially, as opposed to Xavier, Texas. Kind of makes sense to me from like a jumping off point, because you put UNC on national TV and that will elicit ratings. Like, this will be a really well-rated game for True TV. Now, Xavier's 50 miles from Dayton. You'd think maybe they could play on Tuesday. Obviously, Austin isn't exactly a stone's throw from Dayton, but it's closer than San Diego. So you consider all of that, and you consider all of that, and yeah, I think they get the short end of the stick. Is it the end of the world? It's not the end of the world. I mean, if you're playing in the first four, half of the teams are playing on Tuesday and half the teams are playing on Wednesday. So, I mean, that's just the math of it. I was thinking all along that if the Aztecs were headed to the first four, they were playing on a Wednesday because they were coming from San Diego, but that's not how this works. There's no assurances. There's no guarantees. I mean, you'd rather be in playing on Tuesday than out. And I would say that a million times out of a million times. You'd rather be in than out. I don't care if you have to play this thing on the moon, but if you're in, that's a million times better than being out. I saw some reaction. Maybe some of you saw the same thing over the last like 24 or 48 hours. Maybe some of you felt this way. Like, I saw like people saying, would you prefer to go to the NIT and, maybe with the chance to win a couple of games as opposed to go to the NCAA tournament if you're just going to go to the first four? I'm like, no, absolutely not. This whole sport is predicated on the NCAA tournament. Players want to play in the NCAA tournament. This is March. When you talk about March Madness, they're not talking about the NIT. Now, with all that being said, if you don't make the tournament, there's opportunities. Sure, you got a young team. You get the chance to play postseason basketball. Like, I can sell you on it, but with all things being equal, there's no comparison. There's no comparison between being in the NCAA tournament and being in the NIT, or there's some new events as well, CBI, Crown Tournament. No, I mean, I'll play in the first four a million times out of a million times over playing in the NIT. So, we'll see. I mean, it could be over in a blink of an eye, or you could be moving on and have a really fun ride in store, or that begins on Tuesday and continues on Friday in Milwaukee against Ole Miss. But before you think about Friday in Milwaukee, you have to get through Tuesday and the Tar Heels at Dayton Arena. Let's see here. Yeah, I heard, in the initial reaction, I think we all felt it was Tuesday. I heard Dutcher with the media talking about Wednesday, but again, now it's Tuesday. So how does that impact San Diego State? I think it impacts them significantly, and it has to change their game plan moving forward by playing on a Tuesday as opposed to on Wednesday. Let's see here. What else? Yeah, congratulations to UC San Diego on their first ever NCAA tournament bid in their first ever year of postseason eligibility for the NCAA tournament, winning the Big West and drawing Michigan in the first round. And I think that game will be played in Denver. Michigan and UCSD in Denver in a 5-12 game. Triton's playing some of the best basketball in the country, and we'll see if they can upset the Wolverines in the opening round this weekend. Yes, please do that. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate you. If you're here, please subscribe. And if you're here, please smash that like button as well. Yeah, I mean, this is possible that it'll be a home game for North Carolina, with Dayton not being that far from Chapel Hill. I don't know how far it is. You said it's a short flight. I'm sure it is. It's probably drivable in theory. I'm not sure. Someone can let me know how far of a drive that is from Chapel Hill to Dayton, Ohio. But yeah, I would imagine they will have a good share of the crowd for whatever that's worth. Again, because the Aztecs have played well in road games this year. They played well in neutral games this year. I've seen the Aztecs a ton in the NCAA tournament over the last handful of years. The environments they're all unique around the country, right? They're all unique, and San Diego State will be they're not going to be overwhelmed by the environment. They play at Viejas Arena, so they're certainly not going to be overwhelmed by the environment. Let's see here. Yeah, Mikey B saying that UNC's guard centric with no real big man or big should dominate the paint, and if we can stay in front of their talented guards, we will control the game and win. I mean, that's going to be easier said than done. Yeah, they're not overly big in just looking at the roster, but they've got athleticism. I can promise you that. And, San Diego State has gotten really good play from its forwards here recently. Think about that. Jared Coleman-Jones, Miles Heide, Farrell Compton. You get Magungwath back, and he is close to himself, and you're going to feel pretty good about your opportunities inside and just the opportunities that present themselves with your forwards. And here's the other thing. Yes, UNC has elite guard play, but San Diego State, again, like I said, has veteran guard play that has carried this team more often than not this year. So it's just an amazing opportunity, I would say, for guys like Boyd, Bird, McKinney, Davis, DeGorville, right? I mean, it's just an amazing opportunity is what it is. Thank you, Stephen, who says that BJ had 4 3-pointers against Wyoming. I mean, that was 2 weeks ago. So, to pretend like BJ Davis is what was the first super chat? Like, oh, he's on his way out. Look at his reaction. I mean, this guy's had some meaningful moments as recent as the last week, truthfully. I know he hit shots against Nevada at home last week. I swear he hit shots against Nevada at home last week. So, and he's a brilliant defender. You're going to need BJ Davis to play a really good game. He's a brilliant defender at his best. So he's going to play a big role for the Aztecs on Tuesday night. Yeah, again, some of this stuff, I don't know if it's just troll. I've seen this name in here before. He's saying that San Diego State will be forever used as a stepping stone. No, it won't. I mean, what are you even talking about? There's one example of this. You can tell me, oh, no, Chad Baker-Mazara. No, he's not. What are you talking about? Chad Baker-Mazara had to go Division II before he got back to Division I. So no, he didn't leave San Diego State to go to the SEC. He left San Diego State to go to a Division II junior college before he got to Auburn. And the Lamont Butler situation has played out across the country. And you can't fault Lamont for taking advantage of that opportunity. He's spent 4 years here. He could have left after his 3rd year. He didn't. He could have left after the national championship. It would have been the easiest thing in the world. You're going to fault a player for leaving anywhere after 4 years when there's players at Kentucky and Kansas playing 1 year and going to the NBA or transferring out after 1 or 2 years. San Diego State has had no more movement than any other program around the country, including programs that have won at a high level. They happened to have movement last year late. Yes, Elijah Saunders and Lamont Butler happened late, but not everyone knows all the particulars of how that movement occurred. And SDSU has also retained a lot of its talent over the last 3 years. Miles Bird didn't go anywhere. Lamont Butler didn't go anywhere after his 3rd year. Micah Parrish came back for his 2nd year. Darion Trammell came back for his 2nd year. So, you can say whatever you want to say, but it doesn't back up the facts of what's actually played out here. And the fact is San Diego State's added P4 transfers. Look at Reese Waters. Reese Waters has doubled down on SDSU for a 3rd year when he could turn pro or go elsewhere. We'll see what Nick Boyd elects to do. Nick Boyd could have played in the ACC. Look at where he had offers from this year. So, it's easy to say something like that, but it's another thing to actually be accurate when you say something like that, and it's inaccurate. So I have to call it out because that's an absurd comment is what it is. I mean, the Aztecs have actually retained more than most would, considering, again, being outside of a P4 league. They've raised a lot of money for this collective here, Mesa Foundation, over the last, 12 to 24 months, but their collective has not been the same collective, obviously, as Kansas or Kentucky, and never will be Kansas and Kentucky. Players want to play at San Diego State. They're willing to do it for less. You're going to lose players. Kansas loses players. San Diego State loses players. I mean, it's just going to happen everywhere. If you're not understanding of that, then you're not understanding of the current climate of college athletics. You're just not. Let's see here. Scrolling through some of the comments. Kevin, it's funny you say that. Potentially is what I would say. Far from a guarantee, potentially. I think this was probably etched in stone that it wasn't going to be more than 4. I think for a while it was looking like it was going to be 2 or 3 for most of the year. It was trending towards 3, I think, even heading into championship week, but then there were no bid stealers. And then Colorado State was the only bid stealer. So that was the fourth. And I think to get a fifth was probably a bridge too far. Even if, let's say we played 18 league games, not 20, and let's say Boise State had one more Q1 win. Are they really getting in? They were fourth out. Are they really getting in over West Virginia, who should be in this field? Or, name the other school that's on the outside looking in. I don't even know who's on the outside looking in. Ohio State. I think 4 was going to be the max this year. Coming off 6 last year, I just didn't see more than 4. In fact, I really didn't see more than 3. I guess there's always that possibility. I think maybe if Boise doesn't lose to Boston College on a neutral floor, if Boise, who else did they had another bad loss? I forget who it was too. But yeah, they probably were done in by maybe they were probably done in more by a landmine than they were done in by not scheduling enough Q1 competition, because they had St. Mary's. They had Clemson. If they avoid the Boston College loss, are they the last team in over North Carolina? Maybe. If they had one more quad 1 win in the non-conference over like an Ohio State, like a top 50 caliber net team, are they in as opposed to out? Yeah, it's a possibility. But I think ultimately they were probably destined for 3 or 4 bids as opposed to 4 or 5 bids this year. Aztec Analytics agrees with you. I mean, maybe I'm off. Yeah, listen, I mean, we're on the margins. When you get to the final at-large selections, consider this, by the way, 2 things to consider. One of which is, remember a year ago, there was 1 fewer at-large spot, not because of bid stealers, but because the Pac-12 existed. So there used to be 1 more conference champion, and that will happen again in 2026. If there was 1 more conference champion, UNC is on the outside looking in, and I guess San Diego State might be the last team in the field. So consider that. It's kind of interesting that UNC takes advantage of the fact that the Pac-12 ceases to exist here in 2025. But yeah, maybe. Again, I've never been a fan of 20 games. The only reason I don't kick and scream about it more is the Aztecs are going to the tournament. They've been going to the tournament. And this will all end in a year because the Mountain West, the Aztecs are leaving the Mountain West next year. And I'd be surprised if they were playing 20 games in their new league in the Pac-12. And if they are, I'm probably cool with it, because if you're playing Gonzaga and St. Mary's and Colorado State and Boise State, right? Like, those are opportunities within your league. Those are a lot of quad 1, quad 2 opportunities in the league. You just don't have as many of them in the currently constructed Mountain West. Top's been really good. Just the bottom hasn't been good enough to get that 5th team consistently into the NCAA tournament. Let's see here. Not really, Kevin. I think they're just slotting teams to some extent. I don't think they're overly concerned about where they're putting them. Here's what surprised me. First of all, I think it's a good draw for CSU to play in Seattle. Not that it's overly close, but it's further from Memphis. But what surprised me is putting BYU in Denver. I think that's an absurd advantage when you put an elevation team at elevation against a non-elevation team. They're playing VCU. Now, they're the higher seeded team, so, okay, they can have advantages, but they're not regionally protected, and they're playing in Denver at elevation against a team that doesn't ever play at elevation. I think that is a huge advantage. But for Colorado State, I think it's not a detriment. I'd probably rather play that game in Seattle than, Lexington, Kentucky against Memphis. And I think that's why CSU is a 12 is favored against that 5 seed in Memphis. I watched a ton of Memphis the last couple of days. They've dealt with some injuries. I thought they looked pretty good today. Man, they got some big men inside that are good shot blockers and scorers. I think it'll be a very good game. So I'm excited to watch that game play out this weekend. Let's see what else here. There's been a lot of comments here on Miles Heide. I think Miles has been absolutely terrific. And I'd be surprised, actually, if anyone disagreed with that. I mean, you have Magoon go out, and Miles has played some of the best basketball of his career. He's one of the top offensive rebounders in the country. He had a stretch where I think he made 17 consecutive field goals over 4 games as well. Like, there should not be any critiquing or criticism going on right now of Miles Heide the way he's played over the last year. He's the last month. He's a true sophomore that has fully emerged, has played some huge minutes, and had some huge offensive rebounds for SDSU as well. So I'm hoping that we see more of the same from Miles Heide on Tuesday night against UNC, because he's been playing some really good basketball for the Aztecs. Thank you, Stephen. 482 miles. I mean, it's not exactly drivable, but then again, if you had to, if you're crazy, you could do it. Like, what is that at 70 miles an hour? I drive 65, but 70 times 7, you could do it in 7 hours, right? 7, 8 hours. That's not crazy. That's not crazy, like Omar says. Hour and a half flight. Yeah, and no doubt. Regional advantage for UNC. Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. Completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree on that as well. I shouldn't pull up the comment, but sometimes I enjoy the trolls, truthfully. Like some of the comments I get in my text line. I know a lot of you guys listen to me after Aztec games, San Diego Sports 760, when I talk to like Dutch and then the players, and then I read the text. And man, if I could read back those texts from Thursday and what everyone was saying, everyone told me the season's over. What a disappointment. No chance. John, why are you selling this fake bill of goods that they could make the NCAA tournament? That's comical. That is so comical. 72 hours later. There's even like some of the comments here in the chat are comical. I don't even want to pull them up because they're so ridiculous. I don't even want to deal with them. Yeah, this is a good point as well, Rich. Someone can put this distance in the chat. It's not like you go from Dayton and then have to get to Orlando, or you go from Dayton and you have to get to like Albuquerque. And I don't know what they typically do in those situations, but that's a fair point. I was thinking that as well. Not just that. I think the winner of this game has such a huge advantage from a first four perspective, because typically, as we've been talking about, you typically go Wednesday to Friday, and that requires travel, or Tuesday to Thursday, and that requires travel. Now the winner of this game gets the extra day. So short travel, extra day, another day of prep. And when you play in the round of 64 after winning the first four, it's almost like you are the team that is capable of landing the first punch, because the other team is the one that's on eggshells. They haven't yet played in the NCAA tournament. Their season is on the line. And that team coming in is looser and freer because they're coming off a win. So for the winner, I think it's very advantageous. The key is to be the winner, right? The key is to win that game, is what I would say. Craig says the team seems to get up for a challenge. I love that we play a blue blood. I think it's a really cool opportunity for San Diego State. I mean, obviously the Aztecs brand has emerged nationally over the last 25 years to the point where, I mean, it's San Diego State. It speaks for itself, right? One of the Western powers, especially over the last 25 years since Fisher got to campus in 1999. You don't have to explain it to anyone. It speaks for itself. You know what it is. It's defense first. It's a culture. It's gritty. It's blue collar, and it wins at a high level. And North Carolina is the same thing. It speaks for itself. They don't have to, they hang banners. They've got 6 national championships. I have no clue how many Final Fours, third most wins in the history of college basketball, I think behind Kansas and Kentucky. It speaks for itself. It's North Carolina. It's 2 Jordan brand schools going up against each other. It's that Argyle down the side for UNC. It's that Carolina blue. It's going to be a cool scene. It's going to be a cool scene, not one you get to see each and every year, even with some of the Aztec opponents that they play in the non-conference or in the NCAA tournament, like Alabama in the Sweet 16 a couple of years ago. But this is UNC, a true traditional blue blood that has done it consistently decade in and decade out, really since the beginning of college basketball, or going back at least 5 decades at this point. Thank you, Stephen. 394 miles. So it's a flight, but a short one. It's gonna be a good look on floor. I'm with you on that. It's gonna be a clean look on floor on Tuesday night. I don't know who's going to be in white. I think San Diego State's the higher seeded team. I would imagine that the Aztecs are in white and UNC is in Carolina blue. This is an interesting. Is this the Major League Baseball wild card, the first 4? No, it's actually even more unique than that. I mean, the truth is, there's only 8 of the 68 play in this round, but it's kind of like 4 of the, at large / high major teams are playing in this event, because 2 of these games are 16s versus 16s, right? You're playing for the opportunity to most likely lose to a 1 seed. But the teams that make it out of the first 4 that are the 11 seeds or the 12 seeds traditionally have had success. UCLA made a Final Four. VCU went first 4 to Final Four. We've seen teams make Sweet 16s from the first 4. Maybe Syracuse did that once. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. But there have been teams to not just win the first 4, but then win again in that round of 64. There's a number of examples of that. So it's maybe a little bit like this recent college football playoff, where the teams that won in the first round then beat the teams with byes in the second round, right? Like Boise State got a bye in the college football playoff. Penn State played the week before, got all the nerves out of the way, beat SMU at home, and then beat Boise State. And that played out consistently throughout the tournament, right? Because Ohio State played at home in the opening round, and then they won. Texas, they won. And so on and so forth. So I don't know how to fully describe it. It's only existed for 15 or 20 years. They did it because another league was added, a lower level league, and they didn't want to take away an at-large spot. So they went from 64 to 65, and then they went from 65 to 68. Now there's further talk of the potential for expansion from 68 to 72. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. If they did that, they would need another quote unquote first four site to do that. But I've come to accept that the field expanded to 68. I am a college basketball junkie. I watch these games. I watched Colorado State last year against Virginia. I watched Boise State last year in the first four. So I like it. I mean, I like more, not less, right? And I don't think it's taken away from the uniqueness of the tournament playing with 68 teams. I think San Diego State had a really good year. I think they deserve to be in this event. And if it wasn't 68 teams, they wouldn't. So I'm a proponent of it. I'm not saying make it 130 teams or 128 teams, but I think 68, you got 400 Division I teams, essentially. 68 is a small percentage. It's harder to get to the men's basketball tournament than it is to the Major League Baseball postseason. That's for sure, based on percentages. So, I think the teams that get there, by and large, do earn it. Now, are there more opportunities in the power leagues? Yeah. I mean, there's 14 SEC teams in. A lot of those teams are some of the best teams in the country. But, yeah, I mean, going 19 and 15, is that the most impressive accomplishment across college basketball? Maybe not. But when you're beating, schools like Kentucky and Texas Tech and Texas A&M along the way, I don't fully support 14 teams in the league getting in. I mean, that's unprecedented. But I also understand it's not easy, even in the SEC, to make the NCAA tournament because, yes, those teams are in, but LSU and South Carolina aren't in, and they were in the SEC. And it's harder to get in when you're not in a power league. Like San Diego State, I think, is a more impressive feat, getting in 5 straight years, getting in 6 straight years under Steve Fisher at one point. Like that, to me, is a super impressive feat because your margin is thinner coming out of a non-Power 4 league. And that's what makes San Diego State's sustained success so impressive over the years under Fish and Dutch. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm with you. Stark. He says this team has had a lot of turmoil this year. Bird injury. Jared Coleman-Jones had an injury. Guath has missed 6 games with the hyperextended knee. The beginning of the season was really the only time this team was healthy until now, and they cooked. Yeah, they did. Absolutely. I mean, they played some of their best basketball in November. That's a factual statement. And now they're looking to play some of their best basketball in March, and that's happened under Dutch and Fish before, and it's fully capable of happening again come Tuesday night. And it will not be easy, again, with the travel, the turnaround, the Guath injury, his return, taking out a team as talented as UNC. I think UNC is a really good team. You can argue the merits of whether they should or should not be in the field. That's irregardless at this point. What matters is this is the matchup. And now that they're in, they've got a veteran group with elite guards that are capable of winning and have won in the NCAA tournament, like RJ Davis. So it is far from an easy test or task for San Diego State, but I think it's a cool one as well for the Aztecs. Greg says this comes down to each player peaking at the right time. Phase 3 of the season for Bird. When he shows up on offense, we are hard to beat. It's not just his offense, truthfully. Like I go back to that play made against Boise, like near midcourt, where he threw a pass behind his back and that led to a slam. He can impact a game everywhere. Passing, I think he's been a great passer here recently. He's really had good vision, especially with Miles Heide. His defense is unbelievable. Whether it's steals, blocks by the rim, right? Just his general defense. I mean, he's as good of a defender as there is, basically, in the Mountain West. So he can help you win in multiple ways. And yes, when his offense is clicking, when he knocks down a couple of threes, when he's able to get to the rim and score, when he goes for 15 plus, like the Aztecs are tough to beat. So I would say Miles Bird's a critical piece, but not just with his offense, truthfully. I think it's a lot more than that with Miles Bird. And I also think from an Aztec perspective, and we haven't touched on this as of yet here tonight, and I only have another handful of minutes, like San Diego State's got to avoid foul trouble. They did against Boise State, and then we're done in by that scoring drought. Credit to Boise with that defense. Aztecs didn't have a field goal in the final 9 minutes of the game. For the first 30 minutes, it looked like they were going to win the game. I mean, they led by and large the first 30 minutes. I thought the biggest turning point was the 2 threes Boise hit on their way to the locker room. But got to stay out of foul trouble. Absolutely have to stay out of foul trouble. Steve says, if St. Mary's gets added to the new Pac-12, we have 6 teams from the new Pac-12 in this year's tournament. That is a quality basketball league. Quality. That's incredible. Is it 6 or would it be 5, Steve? Can someone list the teams? You'd have Gonzaga, San Diego State, Utah State, Colorado State, St. Mary's. Who else? Not Fresno, not Boise, not Washington State, not Oregon State. I think it would be 5, which is still a big number. I mean, 5's more in the ACC. That's a huge number, especially for a 9 or 10 team league. But Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if St. Mary's got an invite. I have no clue if it happens or not, but it wouldn't surprise me considering their long history with Gonzaga and their long history of success under Randy Bennett, you know? This is an interesting question because I don't even know how you determine blue bloods. Anyone know our record against blue bloods? I mean, who do you even throw in there? Obviously, they won at Kansas. If you throw Kansas, Kentucky, North Carolina, Duke, UCLA, Aztecs have beaten UCLA, obviously. I don't know who else would be on that list, right? Indiana on that list. Are they a blue blood? But against those 6, 7, 8 teams, I don't know. But I'm more concerned about not their all-time record, but basically what they've done over the last 20 plus years. And what they've done is win at a high level against all opponents, essentially, over the last 20 plus years. Let's see here. Steve says 4 Mountain West teams plus Gonzaga plus San Diego. Yeah, but one of the Mountain West teams is New Mexico, and they're not coming over to the new Pac-12. But I get your point. Yeah, so he says it's 5. Yeah. In fact, if you looked at the new Pac-12 today, would have 4 teams in. St. Mary's isn't in the new Pac-12 as we sit here today. That could change. So they'd have 4 in today. The new Mountain West would have 2, New Mexico and Grand Canyon. So a leg up already for the new Pac-12 in men's basketball. Yeah, fair point, Omar. Rebound is going to be critical, right? The Aztecs were beaten on the glass against Boise State. I think they were second chance points, outscored 18-3. That's critically important. And, you know, a lot of games start with rebounding. The way the Aztecs defend, if you can rebound as well, you'll give yourself a chance to win. I mean, this is an elite defensive team. Elite, the Aztecs. I mean, field goal percentage defense, maybe top 3 in the country this year. You get Magoon back, the way he alters shots. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm rebounding. I am. And yes, you know, I've pushed this off and said I didn't think free throw shooting would be the difference between San Diego State getting into the NCAA tournament or not, and that proved to be right. But that doesn't mean it can't be the difference between moving on. In any one game, free throw shooting, of course, can be the difference. And the Aztecs, yes, it is fair. They have struggled with free throw shooting by and large this year, but they've overcome it because they've gotten to the NCAA tournament. And thank you, Stephen. Looking forward to the travel. Hopefully, I'll see some of you guys out there at UD Arena on Monday and Tuesday. Otherwise, please tune in all week. John and Jim on San Diego Sports 760, pregame coverage on San Diego Sports 760. I'll hope to have more for you at some point over the next 48 hours as well here on the Aztec Wrap-Up Show. But please, if you have not subscribed, we have year-round content for you. Please subscribe. That's all I ask, whether you're here live or on replay. Appreciate you. Please subscribe. Smash the like button for me and follow me on X at John Schaefer. That's JONSCHAEFFER. Until next time, my name is John Schaefer, and I will see you Tuesday night, San Diego State and North Carolina. First 4 in Dayton, Ohio. And this has been the Wrap-Up Show. Thanks, guys.